Classical Academy Board of Directors to order at 6:01 on October 16th, 2024. In accordance with Wisconsin's open meetings law, the required notice of this meeting ran in the Saturday, October 12 issue of the Waukesha Freeman, was posted on the LCCA website and at the front entry doors at both school campuses. Our mission, the LCCA mission, is to train the minds and improve the hearts of young people through a content-rich classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. Please, will you join me in standing and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Moving to the next part of the agenda, which is the agenda and minutes. Is there any objection to the minutes from the September 19th meeting or tonight's agenda? Anybody? Since there's no objection, the agenda is approved. And with that, we'll move to Citizens Forum. Stacy, I think we have some.
Yes, we have 4 this evening. First up is Casey Cole, records policy is what she has down.
All right.
Would you like me to stand or?
Whatever you want to do.
I'll stand. So, my name is Casey Cole, and my son Jason Stakoviak was a student at LCCA from fall of 2023 until September 17th of 2024, when we withdrew him from LCCA due to what we firmly believe is educator misconduct, as well as a violation of his rights under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act IDEA. As a result of the actions leading us to withdraw our son from LCCA, as well as what we feel is a lack of transparency, we filed an open records request on October 7th, 2024, seeking information related to our son's IEP in addition to his individual education records, behavioral records, as well as LCCA policies related to these things. In response to our open records request, we were informed by Head Principal Margaret Danu on October 11th, 2024, that we would first need to remit a prepayment of $622.88 to cover a total of 6 hours to locate records and 3.3 hours for records review and revision. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, schools may charge for providing copies of student records. However, they cannot charge for searching or retrieving student records, nor redaction, review, or segregation of student records. Furthermore, per Wisconsin open records law, for records not covered under FERPA, costs associated with locating records may be charged if they total $50 or more. Subsequent review and redaction of the record are separate processes for which a requester may not be charged. Only actual, necessary, and direct location costs are permitted. With respect for the information we requested not covered under FERPA, a total of an exorbitant $622.88 prepayment remittance projects a strong impression that LCCA is attempting to financially restrict access to information that is protected by the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. Additionally, such actions by LCCA in response to both FERPA and FOIA requests infer that LCCA is attempting to hide information from parents and the public. Further supporting this impression that LCCA is attempting to financially restrict access to records, the LCCA Board Manual Code 1008 states, in regards to release, inspection, and reproduction of LCCA public records, the LCCA Board shall periodically review and establish fees in accordance with applicable law. A list of such fees shall be available at the LCCA office. However, on October 7th, 2024, when I requested this specific list of fees, it was not physically available to be given. Instead, I was told it would be emailed, which I've yet to receive. Due to what we have experienced thus far in our attempts to obtain records and information that relate to withdrawing our son from LCCA due to what we firmly believe is educator misconduct and a violation of our son's IDEA Act rights, I'm imploring that the board, in their records policy, publish current up-to-date fees on the LCCA website, in addition to setting a maximum charge of no more than $150 for records requests related to current or past students when made by a parent or legal guardian, so that parents will not be financially restricted from obtaining their children's records. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Erica Urban, but she has on here declining waitlist enrollment, so I'm not quite sure how that relates to it.
I'm sorry, say it.
Declining waitlist / enrollment, but I don't know how that relates to anything on the agenda.
Now the principal's report.
It's not
It's on the principal's report every time.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Hi, I'm Erica Urban. I'm a mother of 4 children, 3 of whom attend LCCA. I'm here tonight to express my deep concern with the direction of our school. I'm sure you're aware, but in September of 2023, we had a wait list of 147 students in grades K through 11. Last month, September of 2024, we had a wait list of only 28 students in grades K through 12. This is where you need to look deep into what's changed over the last year. I will tell you what I have seen as an active parent who attends the majority of the board meetings, speaks to the community, and values input from other concerned families. 1, within the last year, I have watched the board give all of its power to administration. Other school districts depend on the board to keep checks and balances over the administration. We've officially lost that, and now we have a dictator. We cannot have one person in total power who does not allow different opinions, thinks in black and white, and becomes agitated when questioned. Parents have felt pushed away and dismissed when they are not heard, which is why some families have left LCCA. 2, our board has changed from a mixture of parents and business people in the beginning to a board who kicks out members for asking questions and raising concerns. Our board needs to have a balance again. Parents, community members, staff, and board members should be able to ask the tough questions. We all need to work together to make our school successful for many generations. 3, our high school students deserve to have AP courses on their transcripts. I agree with a past board member expressing that if our school is not a college prep school, it should be stated on the website so families are fully aware of the admin's mentality regarding education after high school. My husband and I are now encouraging our 8th grade son to attend a different high school because of the dismissal of AP courses alone. 4, our school is filled with wonderful, caring, intelligent, competitive, and successful students. We should be hiring more employees who focus, this is not, our employees are fantastic. We should be hiring more employees who focus on the majority of our students not needing to be disciplined instead of a new hire stating, quote, make lunch, recess, and after-school detentions great again, unquote, on social media. The social media posts from this individual have spread far and wide, and it is not giving our school the name most parents desire for their children. We did not sign up for a military school. Holding children accountable for their actions is acceptable, but walking into a new school with authority on the first day of school looking to hand out detentions is not acceptable. Word of mouth is the best form of marketing. It is free. It can make or break a school. I'm urging each of you to take a few steps away from your current mindset. If this school was your livelihood or your business, what could you do to make people come back into our doors? What is happening right now is clearly not working. Good families are leaving in droves, and it's extremely concerning for the future of LCCA. I care about this school, and I want it to succeed. I want this school for all 4 of my children, including my daughter, who is about to be 1. I want them all to graduate from LCCA, and that's what I'm begging you is to just look outside, please.
Next, we have Michael Sharkey, records policy.
I understand that there have been multiple requests by anonymous members of the public for open records. Although neither my wife nor I have personally requested any records, we can understand why parents feel the need to do this, as the board and administration has not been functioning transparently. I also understand that the school is charging an exorbitant amount of money for new open records requests. I just want to point out that legally the school can only charge for time spent locating the records, which should not take long because of computer and email search engines. Specifically, the school cannot legally charge for any time spent redacting or reviewing records, and when charging for locating records can only charge hourly by the hourly rate of the lowest paid school employee, even if that employee is not the one pulling the records. I would also like to say that I was disappointed, though not surprised, to learn of the one campus plan coming to a halt. However, I am confident that had the board been discussing their one campus plans openly and publicly, you would have saved an enormous amount of time and money, as community members could have raised several questions, concerns, or simply offered support, experience, and expertise from the broad skill set of stakeholders that make up the LCCA community. When the time comes to revisit the future one campus ambition, I implore you to reconsider the benefit of engaging publicly and including a well-rounded committee to ensure a more successful effort. Thank you.
And then next we have Karen Sharkey, open meeting versus closed meeting.
Good evening. I was confused by the phrase during the last virtual meeting that our board has grown in confidentiality. In recent months, as public servants of a taxpayer-funded government organization subject to Wisconsin open meetings law, the board is required to conduct all discussions publicly, with very few stringent exceptions as outlined specifically in the law. However, our board, since its inception, and especially in recent months, has only increased in the egregious amounts of illegalities that have taken place. If you think this is an outrageous accusation, all it takes is a quick read-through of the compliance guide from the Wisconsin Department of Justice to understand that our board is not acting above board. I have read this guide, and for your convenience, I have made a copy for each of you here today, as well as copies for the review of anyone in attendance who would like to read it. I have taken the liberty to highlight specific areas of interest. In light of this law, I would like to know the following. Why was there a meeting held off-site on July 27th at 8:30 a.m. at Brannigan in a different county, inaccessible to the public? Why were the parents who tried to attend that meeting locked out of the building? Where are the minutes from that off-site July meeting? How are discussions regarding potential new board members, the drafting of board policies, the crafting of board letters, and all conversations, plans, and details surrounding the One Campus project happening without the public being privy to them, if not illegally? Any and all discussions amongst members happening out of the public eye about anything related to LCCA or the board are illegal. And this includes walking quorums and daisy chain conversations between members. Lastly, I would like to remind all of you that unless the board is negotiating the purchase price of real estate, Wisconsin Statute 19.851E does not apply, and therefore anything discussed in today's closed session, other than the purchase price of real estate, would be in violation of Wisconsin open meetings law. All other conversation about the One Campus project, including talking about engineers, architects, design, timing, cost, capital campaign, fundraising and financing, potential property locations being considered, and what the building would physically look like, must be discussed publicly in the open portion of the meeting. All non-purchase price related discussion outside of the open meeting is illegal. And yet, the board has had over 20 meetings with this Wisconsin statute as the cited reason, despite repeated red flags continually being raised by parents and community members. Board of Lake Country Classical Academy, you are not above the law. And with God himself as both judge and witness, I think it wise for each of you to consider that before moving into closed session today. Well, this is highlighted for you because it seems that people have missed a few things along the way.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
I'll make sure to give Skylar his. If anyone else would like to look at these, you're welcome to pass them around. Thank you.
Any more
That's it.
public comment? Okay. With that, we'll segue to board president's report, and some of what I'm going to update you on is going to be an echo of some comments that were made earlier as part of the last part of the meeting. One is One Campus. We're all disappointed. I mean, we've been working hard on this for the last year plus, and we've had multiple consultants involved. There was a push very early on in this process. People really wanted new construction. They wanted a big, shiny new building. That's what we were working on, and the numbers came back. And I don't know if any of you, or hopefully all of you, saw the letter that we sent out on this. The numbers didn't jibe. It's one thing to have a plan, but it's one thing to get financing, and then quite another to actually pay off that financing. So despite, and there were several things stated in the last few minutes that are just simply untrue, just simply false. But one of them is that we've halted one campus. That's just an example of something that isn't true, so I can correct the record there. We're definitely not pursuing the path that we were on, but it doesn't mean that we're halting one campus. We hope to have new and good news to share soon with the community on that. There was a statement made about if people ask questions, they're not on the board anymore. The board has robust debate and discussion and disagreements all the time. So I know that there seems to me to be a fair amount of disinformation about the board and its motives. The board's being impugned. The board has received threats. And that isn't the kind of culture, of course, we want here. The parent community is vital to us. Parents being on the board, vital and important to us. The fact that that there's been disagreements or people have left the board, all of that, it doesn't change our focus, it doesn't change our support of the mission. So despite, I think, of a lot of information going around for whatever reason, I mean, that commitment hasn't changed. And then one last response to the public comments. The meeting at Brannigan was an offsite specifically intended to switch things up, make things more creative. This is the first I've heard that there was an issue, which is interesting to me because we met at Brannigan. I volunteered the space. Despite the implication that a parent has made, there was nothing nefarious behind it. It was like, hey, let's get out and go to a different place. Literally, that was it. We had somebody at the door a half an hour prior to the meeting and well into when the meeting started. Because it is downtown Milwaukee, the door did shut at one point. There's a call box that nobody called, nobody received an email, and nobody received a follow-up that there was any discontent among parents. This is the first time hearing of it. So I'm just sharing that with you because that's information that I think is relevant to this. But there was no, despite, again, the character of the board members being impugned, and there was somebody at a meeting a couple meetings ago suggesting that any board member that has any connection to Hillsdale shouldn't be on the board. It's a conflict of interest. I mean, people can think these things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the board agrees or that the law agrees. And we are absolutely committed to our parent community. I hear from parents all the time. We love our administration, we love our leadership. We know the board, we know that we're a growing school, we know that there's headwinds, we know that there's some constituencies out there that don't like the path we're on, but we do like the path we're on. And we're constantly weighing all this back and forth. So know that we go into this very thoughtfully and always with the best interests of this school at heart. And some of us prayerfully that we make the right decisions. And they aren't always easy decisions, they're not always popular, but I ask you to consider that as you consider other information that's being propagated. With respect to my update, a couple things. One campus, we're not stopping it. It's full speed ahead, but we need to switch up our strategy on it. But what we were doing isn't going to work. We're going to do something else. We're a glass half full board. That's our attitude. I know that's the attitude of the majority of parents, so we really appreciate those parents that have been so supportive and understanding of that. The second thing relating to a comment made about board members, we need board members. And so per a parent's suggestion months ago, we posted what we're looking for in board members on the website. We encourage people to look at that. We're looking for people with specific expertise. Don't quote me on all of this, but legal, comms, and marketing, people who've worked in education. But specifically, this board, as we move from more of an operating board involved in the day-to-day operations of the school, which we should not be at this point, moving more towards a governance board fundraising is a big consideration. So people with fundraising experience who know people who can make those calls, who aren't afraid to make those calls, very important to us. For the board, well, for all of you, but for the board, we have, I think, 3 or 4 people who express interest, so I will be circulating those bios and those letters and the CVs and all that to everybody, and I encourage everybody to reach out to those candidates, and let's get that done in the next 3 weeks or so, and let's look at revisiting this at the November meeting. So that concludes my president report, and with that we head to head principal report.
Thank you.
I just want to draw your attention to The fact that we hosted 2 Constitution Day assemblies this past month, one at East End, one at West, where we recognized the day in history in which that document was signed and established for our country. It was a festive day at both campuses. Moving on to, excuse me, the grants section, I just want you to be aware that we did complete our WCSP monitoring protocol in the month of September, and we were told 3 to 5 week turnaround on any type of report in response to that. The Wisconsin Charter School Programs has a requirement to monitor and meet with any schools that receive that charter school grant that we did receive early on in our startup year. So we concluded that, and I will share that summative report once received. You hopefully have had a chance to look over the enrollment data, but we are currently at 564 students across our K to 12 grades. You have a breakdown of the enrollment by district, and you'll notice that the majority of our students come from the Oconomowoc Area School District as well as the Kettle Moraine School District. But then there are several other districts where families commute to the Lake Country area to have their students attend LCCA. You will also notice the waitlist data. I gave you a snapshot of last year's waitlist data. Just to point out, we ran the enrollment lottery in February, which is why the waitlist data started in February of last year, and we did not run it until March this past spring, so the waitlist data starts in March between the 2 years. But you can see the differences. Again, our waitlist grows from the time of the enrollment lottery until usually the numbers show that in June it begins to dwindle, which makes sense as we rectify and reconcile our returning and departing students, and then start to offer additional seats over the summer months. On the next page, you'll see the retention data from the 23-24 school year, and it shows, to help you understand the different lines of that chart, it shows the enrollment as it was in February of the 23-24 school year, and then we put out a survey to parents inquiring about their intent for their children to return. So you'll see the numbers that show there was no intent to return, and in February that count was 18.
Wait, could you repeat that?
In February the count was 18 students had no intent to return.
Okay.
So then the counter of that is that there were 533 students that did commit to return in February. Then the next line tells you how many students revoked that commitment before the conclusion of that school year, so before June 7th, which was the last day of the school year. And then the final line shows the number of students that revoked commitment after the last day of school, so over the summer months before the beginning of the next school year. So at the time, the far right column shows at the time of the commit to return survey, we anticipated about 96% of students to return, and the previous school year we were at 95% at that same time in the flow of things. And then you'll notice that the actual percentage of return is 82%, and the previous year was 86%. Of students that returned for the current school year. The next chart is a summation of the exit survey data that we received when that exit survey pushed to parents of students who withdrew or decided not to return for this current school year. And when I showed you results previously, I believe we were at 11 survey respondents, and now this captures 24 respondents, 4 of whom are 2 sets of parents, so a mom and a dad of the same household twice over. But you can see that the number of students that withdrew is 97, the number of families that withdrew students is 72, But the number of families that fully withdrew all of the children in their family is 47. So there's some families that withdrew some students, but some of their children remain. And then the reasons spread kind of across the board. Moving out of state, the culture at West, lacking extracurricular options, discontent with the leadership, meaning administration and or board, special education concerns, East culture concerns, a lack of technology instruction, the rigor and fit of the curriculum, distance, commute, and personal reasons, and then desire for AP and exams. So there's a summation of the information that we received via that survey regarding reasons for families that did not select to return. The next page shows information about the retention data of faculty and staff. So the 23-24 school year closed with 69 employees, and 59 employees returned for this current 24-25 school year, which is a retention rate of 86%, which is actually the same retention rate from the previous school year. 7 of the 10 employees communicated their intent to move on before the close of the school year. 1 employee decided not to return during the summer break. 8 of the 10 employees accepted an opportunity to communicate with an administrator about their departure. All 8 of those employees communicated great pleasure with their work experience at LCCA, gratitude for their time here, and a reluctance to leave for personal reasons. Currently, as far as faculty and staff goes, we are still looking to fill some vacancies. A facilities assistant position is posted on Indeed and WeCan and the LCCA website. We're hoping to hire an accounting clerk to assist with business matters in the business office. And we also have a part-time human resources assistant position that we're hoping to fill for the current school year. Moving on to the financial report. As I already mentioned, within some of the highlights for the business office this past month was the WCSP monitoring. We are in the process of finalizing the 23-24 audit. We've been working on finalizing for your action this evening the 24-25 budget, and then One Campus project financial forecasting is an ongoing task in the business office. If you reviewed the financial statements for the month, the income statement showed that the majority of the revenue received in September was the state categorical aid and student fees. Our expenditures were mostly purchase services, including monthly payments to facility vendors and One Campus expenses. Expenditures were finishing off the purchasing of the textbooks, but we also had the audit expenses, and then when we receive our per pupil payment, we submit the charter authorizer fee, so that was an expenditure as well. Excuse me. The bank reconciliation report shows that the checking account is being reconciled to the ending balance of $207,676.93. The money market account reconciles to the ending balance of $2,129,522.45. Our Edward Jones account is being reconciled to the ending balance of $769,654.35. And our total cash on hand is $206,883.73. Last year at this time, the total cash on hand was about 1.7, so this is a 5.5% increase in cash on hand from last year to this. The budget versus actual report shows that revenue is more than budgeted for federal and state agencies due to the receipt of the final IDEA flow-through grant and the EDIS grant from the 23-24 school year. The earnings on investments are based on the transfer of funds to the money market account and the Edward Jones CDs and money market accounts. It's also important to note that our salaries budget versus actual is at 13% of the budgeted amount, and we are at 3 out of 12 months of the fiscal year, or 25%. And as I mentioned before, we are in the hiring process for the accounting clerk, the part-time HR assistant, and the facilities assistant positions, which is the reason for the smaller percentage of the budget to the actual at this point in the year. Moving on in my report, I'd like to give you and just touch on a report from the Student Services Department. You can see the total number of IEPs that we fulfill and serve, and that you see those over the 22-23 school year, the count at the fall of 23-24, and the current count where we are at the fall of 24-25. So we are currently serving 52 IEPs. We also have a few 504 plans, and you can see the comparison from 22-23 to 23-24 to the fall of 24-25. Excuse me. Additionally, we implement what's called a response to intervention, often referred to as RTI, which simply means that we offer tiered support in several academic areas, and you can see the percentages of students receiving that support from 22-23 to 23-24 to the current school year. So in the elementary school, we have about 8% of students in the tier 2 realm of intervention, and less than 1% in the elementary receiving that tier 3 level of support. And we currently are not providing tier 2 or tier 3, or rather I should say we do not have students who need the tier 2 or the tier 3 intervention. We are at the ready to provide it if necessary in the Student Services Department. Excuse me. I have exciting news. Excuse me, sorry.
It's an emotional
I know.
announcement.
I don't know where my voice is going. I have exciting news about athletics, so I'd like to move on to the athletics portion of my report. The high school cross-country team has completed their season. They completed 5 meets this season with both male and female athletes, which is a requirement of our WIA probationary status. We are on track to conclude our 3rd and final year of probationary status with the WIA. And the exciting announcement is that LCCA has officially been accepted into the Lake City Conference for the 25-26 school year. The other schools participating in that conference are Chesterton Academy of Milwaukee, Cristo Rey Jesuit High School, Eastbrook Academy, Faith Christian School, the Hmong American Peace Academy, the Salam High School, St. Anthony, St. Joan Antietam High School, Tenor Veritas, and University Lake School.
It's cool. That's awesome. That's good.
We're really excited
Go us.
because being part of a conference and a full member of the WIA gives us the approved standing to co-op with other schools. And so we have been approved to co-op with ULS, University Lake School, in high school boys soccer and girls volleyball in the fall, plus girls soccer in the spring. We are still in the works. Thankfully, we have the rest of this year to figure it out, but we're still in the works on determining co-op possibilities to eventually offer wrestling, hockey, swimming, and diving. And then lastly, we are investigating interest levels to potentially implement our own boys and girls golf program. So the athletics department is finalizing our 3 years of probation and moving into our first year of official WIA membership, welcomed into a conference, already has agreements for those additional sports opportunities. So we're really excited to push through the end of this year, meaning that you can see our short-term goal is to really finish out this final 3rd year of probationary status, just completing the basketball season for both boys and girls well, meeting the benchmarks that are required of us, and then also completing the spring season when the track and field will be available to high school female and male athletes. So we're very excited about finishing out this year, but also moving into a couple broader, greater opportunities for our student athletes in the year to come.
Will that co-op always be with University Lake School for like the swimming and hockey and all that, or?
Those are annual agreements,
Annual agreements,
so we
okay.
commit to just the next year. The co-op situation in the WIA is the requesting school makes no determination. So we technically have to be invited. So ULS has, is anxious to have our students participate in their athletics, but We can't just approach other schools and say, we're gonna join your teams. We have to be invited by other schools. So that's why I believe it's an annual process, is my understanding. But I can get more information. I don't have all the details on that, but looking forward to it for
Is
sure.
it premature to put a Zamboni in the budget?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's good.
Skylar, we've been kind of bogarting, and it's hard when you're online. Do you want to jump in? Do you have any questions so far? I know Margaret's not quite done yet.
I do have a question that's not on here, but it's in relation to the house system. Just was curious how that's going. I saw an update in the review, I think, this last week, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you should look forward to tomorrow's review because there's another, wait, what's today? Yes, tomorrow's review has another update because the Griffin House just hosted the first Sentinel Games, and the entire high school competed in an ultimate kickball game tournament, I guess it would be better to call it. They were all wearing their house shirts, they were all wearing bandanas, they had their cheers. It was a phenomenal event and really a lot of fun. So so far the house system is just, it's going swimmingly, and the next event will be the fall ball, which I forget which house is fall ball, but they're making plans for that, and bringing in some new and fun ideas of their own. So we're really excited. Things are going well.
I know, Margaret, when you spoke about the retention earlier on, it seemed like the retention was down a little bit. I'm following along as close as I can here. Is most of that retention appears to be high school related? Is that a fair assessment of what I reviewed? Or maybe we're down a little bit compared to retention from last year?
We're down a little bit in retention from last year. What is referred to in the K-12 education arena as the 8th grade melt has been, actually the melt is stable. So the percentage of 8th graders moving on to a different high school increased slightly from the previous school year to last year, and then from last year to this. But the numbers show that statistically our grade levels are decreasing approximately the same year over year. So the slight increase is in the high school. But
Yeah, no,
generally speaking, the numbers are the same grade level to grade level. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I guess the question is, are we seeing most of that in the high school years? And I think the answer, what you're saying is yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, obviously we're on our way to offering additional programming, that's the house programs, the sports activities. So I think hopefully with some of these programs, it takes, obviously it'll take some time, but hopefully we can improve those numbers. And then, I think certainly there's some interest in some other areas as well among our families, but I think these are positive things that are good to hear about, so thank you.
Sure.
That's all I have for now.
Okay, I'll keep going. Let's see. Additionally, in your report, just want to bring your attention, we did host parent-teacher conferences at the end of September, early October, with 60% of West students having a parent attend, 86% of East students had a parent attend a conference. And those numbers compared to the previous year, where at the fall conferences we had 70% of West students had a parent attend a conference, and 90% of East students had a parent attend a conference. As far as our Hillsdale situation goes, we did have the assistant principal of the elementary school as well as the upper school dean of students attend a conference at Hillsdale recently for exactly those positions. Actually, it was assistants, instructional coaches, deans. It's a little bit like a administrative boot camp for that tier of administrators. And then I also had the opportunity to attend a presentation at Hillsdale where I sat on a panel of school leaders and answered some questions and presented a few things to their interested donors and clientele. So those two things happened over the last month. You also received this month the quarterly report from the Marketing and Communications Manager. And all of those, the items included in that report kind of give you a snapshot of all the progress and work that has been going on in her department. It also gives you some great detail about the niche.com responses and how positively that account is working for us, just as an opportunity for people in the community to research a school and find out more about us and learn about the options available to them. Additionally, you have a report from the advancement department as well, and you'll notice that significant work has been going on in the advancement department, finalizing fundraising projections, setting up and implementing a donor database called Grazer's Edge, establishing and nurturing some donor relations with individual donors and foundations. We're working on strategic planning for a capital campaign. There's already 2025 Liberty Gala planning and preparations underway. We are about to, in a couple weeks here in the month of November, we will run our annual Day of Giving fundraiser. And then we're working with the senior class just to consider philanthropy, a gift to LCCA, and what life will be like as an alum, actually. The department director is given a presentation to the seniors on that topic. And finally, as far as the authorizer goes this month, we have submitted and uploaded all the required documents to the Waukesha County Executive site and remain in good standing with our authorizer. And that concludes my report.
Okay, board members, any other questions or discussion items on that?
I had one question. On the wait list, Margaret, you showed the numbers of the wait list dwindling, and then you cited 3 reasons. Not all children in the family were offered a seat, the decision on other schooling has already been made, and negative social media posts. I was just wondering if you have a sense of, among those 3, sort of what the, just rough percentages or something, what was the source of those?
Mostly that is the feedback received from our registrar when the whole offered seat and communication goes to families. They have a certain number of days to accept or decline a seat when offered, and sometimes communication is had. We make multiple attempts to confirm families have received their offer seat, etc. Oftentimes the timing of a seat offer plays into a family's willingness to accept it. So many of our seats were offered later in the summer this year, and that played into families being like, oh, we've already committed, or maybe we've made a tuition down payment, or we've just secured and told our kids that this is where they're going to school, and many families didn't want to walk back a commitment to a decision that they had already made regarding schooling. And then we did have a significant number of families, which is probably a new trend, that if not all of their children were accepted, they weren't willing to accept a seat for only one. So if it was a multi-children family and they were only being offered one seat, they declined that seat. Where it seems, I do not have statistical data, but in conversation with the registrar, we both noted that it seems that families were more readily willing to take a seat for a single child in the first few years. I think the feeling is that, or was that more seats would be available the upcoming year, and to have a student already enrolled gives that student priority for the following year. And now that fewer seats are available as we maintain and continue, they're not wanting to just take one for one child and passing on that. And then we did have some feedback from families who had students on upper school wait lists that they were privy to some discontent via social media and no longer were interested in sending their children here.
I was just curious as a follow-up, like the last one in particular, the negative, I just kind of trying to get a sense, is that just a small minority? Was it 30%? Do you have any idea what?
Yeah, I would have to go back and actually kind of do the numbers, but
Curious.
Just something of note that
Yeah,
was mentioned
okay.
to me, so.
Understood.
Skylar?
Nothing to add on my part at this point.
Stacy and Christina?
No, I was just gonna say, I appreciate, obviously this was a lot of work, putting all this together and just being able to see the comparisons. And this exit survey in particular, I think is really helpful. From looking at it, it looks as though, so approximately half of the families that withdrew, or half actually submitted a survey, right? Am I reading that correctly? Ish,
Little
roughly, a
over.
little over half.
Right.
So, and then when you look at the reasons why, you know, it's, the bulk of it, I think, are things that we're working on and can make improvements over time, you know, like the West Culture, Leadership Board. You know, there's some things on here which, you know, it's unfortunate you want to be everything to everybody, but you just can't.
Right.
You know, we have to stay true to our mission, so it's like, you know, lack of technology, and who knows what that means exactly, but we're a very low technology school. AP exams, things like that aren't in line with mission, then, you know, it's not the right fit. You know, that's too bad, but
Right.
but I think a lot of it are things that we can do better over time. We're still a young school, and I think we have a bright future ahead, so, yeah.
I've got three things. One of the things I want to say comes out of a good question that came out of our last board meeting, and I've had subsequent, just today, emails back and forth with this parent about why don't you post the head principal's report before the meeting, which is totally fair. And the reason we don't is because, and it's more of a practical matter than anything else, it becomes a record, you know, once it gets presented. And I know just from experience, you're often, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, working on stuff up until the meeting. So to put something out there that isn't complete or has bad information just isn't practical. So it's a practical matter. There's been a suggestion, you know, that we're not being transparent. It's not that at all. It's, you know, once this is presented to the board and it's finalized, then it gets posted publicly. Two other things on this. One is,
Hey, Tom,
yeah,
Skylar, on that topic,
yeah.
one of the things I was thinking of, but I'm not there, but would it be possible to project that, to make that a presentation so people who are in attendance can see the report? I know there are.
I had no problem with that. I mean, we definitely upload it after the meeting, but yeah, that would give parents, I mean, I can appreciate it. It's weird hearing all these pages and all that. I mean, I'd be fine with that.
Just give an opportunity to
That's-
follow along.
Yeah, so then parents are seeing it at the same time the board is seeing the final. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So two other things. One, and I really appreciate the marketing. One of the things that came out of the parent survey, and it was a little, not a huge theme, but a little bit of a theme, is our social media channels. Can we be doing more on them? I don't see that directly referenced in here, but is that in the mix?
So,
Like,
social media?
like more content, pushing more content out? Is that kind of in the mix here?
There is I don't know what we would call it, but a plan, a calendar
Good.
plan of,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Good, because I think that's good. That was good parent feedback for that. And my third question, it's just a general, and it's a little esoteric. Sorry. How's the vibe
Great.
on the two campuses?
Yeah, the West Campus is, I don't know that it's humming might be the right word, right? Humming? We've got a lot going on. The kids are really taking to being a part of a house and being a part of a house that is part of a greater system, and just the energy and the vibe, to use your words.
I learned from the younger generation. The vibes.
It's really strong. It's excellent, and at East has typically been our campus that runs just a little bit more naturally smoothly, and it's off to a phenomenal start as well this school year. So all things are great.
I loved the vibe of the last meeting with the students talking about their experience, and what really, not to speak for other board members, what came through to me is we feel bonded, we feel like we're doing good work, we feel multiple students, it's like, and I'm paraphrasing, we're high-fiving each other in the hallways. I feel like I'm talking to people I didn't used to talk to, and that was just, as somebody who's not here day to day, it was great. I don't know if any of the board members felt that way, but I thought it was awesome. All right, good talk. So, okay, so with that.
Can I ask one follow-up question to
Yeah,
your
please.
question? As far as the report and getting it in advance, I know it was sort of a work in progress up till the last minute. Is there a reason it has to be that way? It can't be done a day or two before, other than you're really busy?
The I submit my report the Friday before board meetings.
Right, but then sometimes there's changes.
Yes, I do tweak,
It's all the
update some
updates,
numbers.
okay.
Yeah, so I think the idea though that it is a work in progress until I present. And sometimes the numbers shift or change, but
Yeah, okay.
sometimes we're down to the very skin of our teeth to even get it to you by Friday, but that is our
Yeah,
goal.
no, I
Right.
understand it changes quickly sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we'll move to new business, and there are, we have 5 things here, starting with the budget, which we've already discussed and we've talked about. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the 24-25 budget?
Move to approve the current year budget.
Anybody want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. It is moved and seconded to approve the 24-25 budget. Is there any debate, any discussion we want to have here?
Can I just add one, that the budget as sent to you is, no changes were made to the budget that we reviewed the previous month, other than $10,000 of expense, because we have been paying off the principal on the loan, which we're looking to pay off completely, but these last few months within this budget did incur those payments, so it was $10,000 on the expenses. Other than that, everything has remained the same as to what you reviewed last month.
Any debate? All right, those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, the ayes have it, the motion's carried. The budget for 24-25 academic year is approved.
Thank you.
Number 2 of 5, donation refund policy. This is, this and multiple documents here we've drafted either, in accordance and cooperation with our legal counsel and at the recommendation of our legal counsel. Donation refund policy, first, would anybody like to move to approve it?
I'll move to approve.
Anybody want to second that motion?
I will second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the donation refund policy. Is there any debate? Any discussion?
I did have one question on it, and the second last sentence says donations in excess of $25,000 shall be memorialized by the donor in Lake Country Classical by way of a written agreement memorializing the items of the donation. So my question on that is, do we want it to be that restrictive, or have, and I know this was reviewed by the attorney, but have something in there where it's like if no written response is received in 30 days, then it will be general funds or used for purposes deemed appropriate by the school or something like that, just so we're not sitting, if we can't get a written document, we're not waiting on that. So that was the one thing that stood out at me, and I think it's unlikely, but there could be a situation where we're not getting that in writing, and I just didn't want to restrict ourselves by having that language in there if we don't get any kind of memorialization. Does that make sense?
No, I don't get it.
So if someone makes, it says it shall be memorialized.
Right.
So what if it's not? What if somebody says,
Oh.
here's a check, and they, whatever,
Unrestricted,
they die, they
Right.
just don't respond or whatever.
right.
So it just seemed like more restrictive than it needed to be, and I thought if there was like maybe a clause in there that said, if, something's not received in writing by 30 days, then this is what will happen, might be an extension of that sentence, just to cover us in the event that we don't get any kind of written
So then what would that
instructions.
amendment look like if we don't how would you pen that?
Well, we could soften the language. It's instead of shall be memorialized, we will request that it's memorialized.
Okay.
Or the other alternative I thought is we could add a sentence and say, if it's not memorialized in this amount of time, it will go into general funds or whatever, the appropriate wording is for that. I just felt like it was unnecessarily restrictive.
But if it was developed by the legal counsel, do you think that it was put together appropriately? I mean, or do you think there was a reason?
Maybe Skylar has a thought on
Yeah,
that.
what do you think, Skylar?
I don't know that I've got, I guess what would be most helpful to me, and I just want to make sure it's understood, the reason why we're putting this in place now, obviously we don't have this policy currently, but is there, what's the rationale for this at this point? So I can't answer the question that was posed to me, but I'm posing a new question, I guess.
What's your new question?
The rationale for, I know we didn't have, as far as I know, we didn't have a policy like this before. So what's the rationale for putting this in place as we move forward?
So it's my understanding that in the event that there is a request for a refund due to a donation, we need a legal framework around it. So this was recommended by our legal counsel, that it's not that we don't do refunds, but it puts a lane around it.
Sure. Okay.
Which makes sense to me. Especially, I have a couple things highlighted in the 1, 2, 3, 4th graph. Depending on the circumstances, the school will only consider a refund request if it's made within 30 days of the original donation. So Skylar, things like that makes sense to me. So it isn't 3 years later, hey, I gave this money to the school, I want to talk about a refund.
Yeah.
So Randy's suggestion here is potentially adding a sentence. If not memorialized within X amount of days, it will go into a general fund. I mean, I'm happy to add that to it
Friendly
and
amendment.
pass it with that. We could vote on it with that amendment to it. I'm fine with that.
Sure.
I know it's unlikely, but
No, it makes
No,
sense.
it gives
Makes
the
sense. It
school
took
more
me a minute to
freedom.
get to the game
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
But
No, it doesn't, yeah.
Stacy, do you have any
Yeah, no,
issue with that?
that's-
Okay. All right, those in favor of the motion to approve this refund policy with Randy's add, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Skylar, were you an aye?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
the ayes
anyway,
carry,
I just want to
motion
ask you your verbiage again, just so I have it
passes.
properly. Oh, you have it.
Boom,
Thank you.
there you go. Okay.
run the replay.
All right, so then we go to records policy. So would anybody like to, well, you've all received a copy of this policy. It was written by the school's legal counsel and suggested as a necessary best practice. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Anybody want a second?
I will second.
All right, it's moved and seconded to approve the records policy. Is there any debate, any discussion we want to have?
Again, the same context here. I know there was some parent questions about records today during the open forum, and so you can provide some context of why we're putting this in place now. I know we discussed, I think, in the last board meeting, the amount of cost that's gone into a number of the requests, that type of thing. So can you maybe provide some context here of discussion and what lies to this document?
Yeah, I mean, I can provide some context from my perspective. So when we received open records requests and requests for information, they've been being fulfilled in accordance with the law, and this relates to comments made earlier in the meeting. Everybody here is committed to upholding legal standards and legal best practices, and we're in close contact when necessary with our attorney on these things. And I think, Skylar, this is one of these things where we didn't need this policy. It didn't become an issue until we got to the point where the amount and type of requests got to the point where it was just taking, and I'll defer to Margaret a little bit on this too, taking a lot of time and a lot of resources. So this was penned, as I understand it, by our legal counsel, who is, one of the things she's an expert in is open records meeting law, as a best practice that other organizations, other schools, other charter schools have adopted. So that's what I understand the kind of nucleus of this was kind of formed around. Margaret, do you have any, does that
Legal
jive?
counsel. Yep, just having policies in place that are best practice policies that we didn't yet have.
Yeah.
Any other discussion or debate on this?
So, Ty, I know you said this is reviewed by legal counsels with a specialization in here.
Yeah.
So it seems to be different than other things we've heard from outside legal counsel tonight. So this is fully reviewed by legal counsel and by someone specializing in this who says that this is a policy that is within bounds.
Reviewed and recommended.
Okay.
Written even,
Written by.
drafted by.
Yeah, this does not come from
No, this
LCCA.
is not, yeah, not us, not me, not my administrative team.
So for example, if we have to engage legal counsel, when a question comes in, as I read this policy, we have the ability to pass on that fee, as it relates to legal's review of those, of requests.
No, no, we wouldn't do that. This has to do with the amount of time it takes the school to get together the records and the necessary information to comply with the request. The state of Wisconsin affords charter schools this ability to recoup some of that cost,
Yeah, but not legal fees.
but not legal fees, no.
I was just curious why the document itself it references assistance of legal counsel, so that's not something that's being added into the cost.
Correct, and if you look at the top graph on this, on the second page, it's very specific as to what that is.
I'm sorry, you said top graph, Tom?
The first paragraph on page 2 is,
Imposition is requested record.
right,
Okay.
but there's nothing in this that references legal fees.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion, Stacy? All right, so the question is to approve the records policy. Those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And we have 2 more items. One is the bylaws revision, the revision of bylaws. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the revision?
I'll motion to approve the revision to the.
Anybody want to second it?
I will second.
All right, it's moved and seconded to approve the bylaw revision. Is there any discussion? A couple things on here. Skylar, you muscle your way in if you need to, buddy.
Yeah, the same discussion as before. I just think the context here again, I know these have been discussed, I think at, I believe a meeting in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. But, can we walk through why the changes and, what
Christine.
brought all this about
Yeah,
at
except
this
mine's
point?
not opening. Can you open yours? Okay.
Boom.
Well, here's the problem, because I sent, the highlighted area is,
That's me. That's stuff I.
okay. All right, so I'm not seeing the, there was the summary of changes I shared at the last meeting, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Skylar, were you at the last meeting?
I was, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to that agenda because I'm not seeing that here. All right, give me a minute. And I can share that with you. Sorry, my computer's on its last leg. I think it's gonna gonna make it.
Those of you that
All
can't
right.
see Christina's computer,
It's really falling
about
apart.
half the size of my torso.
Ooh.
It's super old.
It's really old. Okay, September 19th, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we're in business here. All right. You know what I need you to do, because it's not working. Go to September 19 board meeting, and then if you pull up the summary, executive summary, click on there. Executive summary.
While Christina's pulling that up, just a couple things here are popping for me. I think that this affirms a lot of the stuff, I mean, how we've been kind of meeting and behaving. There's been several references to conflicts of interest over the past 2 or 3 months. Section 4.7 talks about comp. Directors of the board shall not receive any compensation for their services as directors or officers. We are all volunteers. We're all just want to support the mission and the faculty and leadership and staff and parent community. I was asked in a question, I was involved in a call with our auditor. So we have a third-party auditor that audits our books and audits all of our financials. And they were asking me about ethics and ethics policies and things like that. And the questions were actually really good. It was a really good discussion. The board does engage in donations, board members, like we have season tickets to the Bucks, so we'll donate them for an auction, things like that. But in no way is any board member getting enriched in any way, other than, the love of doing this.
That's right.
You good?
Okay, yeah, sorry.
All right,
about that.
Skylar, this is for you.
So Skylar, in the last meeting, I presented this summary of changes to the bylaws, and so it's mainly edits that needed to be made because these were the bylaws were written before we even opened, and it was, things that were outdated, such as just our address. And that we changed requirement for board training. We moved it from 90 days to 180 to give people a little more time, because depending on when they join the board, they might not be able to go to Hillsdale training right away. Officers, we discussed the need to prepare an annual report for the board, or that the board should develop an annual report of sorts, and that we hadn't been doing that, but that's something that can be delegated to the school leader, and I believe that your team's actually already working on that, or it's going to work. Okay, so that will be in compliance there. Duties of secretary, there were a couple adjustments we made there, where recording of board meeting minutes, instead of keeping them in a notebook, we have board docs, so going electronic. And then also confirming that all records, tax returns, etc., the storage of those types of documents may be delegated to the school principal or business manager of the school to keep those items. And then meetings, we changed. There was an annual meeting of the board that was originally in the bylaws as August, and we don't meet in August. So we've moved that to January, and we'll use that annual meeting as a time to elect officers, which we will do on an annual basis. So our positions of president and other positions that we want to fill, VP, if we want a VP, treasurer and secretary, those will be 1-year positions. You can re-up for another term as an officer if you'd like, but we'll every year that would be voted on in
That's
January.
a vote.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's good.
Closed sessions, that wasn't even in the bylaws, and so we added that in. And then also contracts, there was a section on contracts, checks, deposits, etc. We made sure that aligned with our accounting policies and procedures. There was a little duplication there, so we removed one thing that was duplication. That's in the other policy. Also, we changed there was a section on insurance, where liability insurance, it was originally stated that the corporation shall have the power to purchase and maintain a minimum of $1 million of general liability insurance to insure the corporation against any liability asserted against it, and it goes on. And so we checked with our insurance agent, and he suggested that we change that to 3 million, which is what we've done. And in ethics and conflict of interest, we modified that slightly to say that in cases where a school or corporation directly employs a child, parent, or spouse of a director as a paid employee, we deleted full-time out of there, just that any relation to the board member should not be an employee of the school. If that makes sense. And then adoptions and amendments, let's see. Oh, this is what's interesting about tonight's vote, because in the original bylaws, we had to do this in 2 phases to revise them. In the first meeting, which we did last month, we discussed it was a first reading of sorts of the revised bylaws. This month, we're now voting on them, but we have to do the vote as a paper ballot, which is the first time we've ever done anything like that.
Just like the first constitutional convention.
We're gonna do it, we're old school, that's what we are, right? No. So
gamepad.
anyway, we have changed the bylaws to state in the future that it will not be a paper ballot. It will be same thing where we do a first reading if there are any changes, and then the board will do a signed resolution instead, rather than doing, the purpose of it, when I talked to the attorney, said it's just to make sure that everyone on the board has a signature saying they voted this way, just to have a record of that. So that was kind of the purpose of the paper ballots, so that's what we're doing tonight. So, what's that?
The other thing was the order of the meeting.
Oh, yeah,
We switched that
the
around,
order
right.
in which, yeah, just sort of
The agenda.
the agenda, because we've got that kind of figured out now, so we changed that to be consistent with how we.
Right.
Okay. But that's mainly, those are the big highlights of the changes. Any questions on any of that?
No, it's all pretty strict. Some of it's just kind of cleanup.
It just needed to be cleaned up,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a nit, but Stacy, if this gets approved, section 11.3, can you just make that font consistent? There's just a
Yeah.
font.
Oh, fine issue.
Just some
Yeah, and just a matter of note, so these bylaws were originally written by an attorney who was on our board, our founding board, and then I reached out to him, and when we wanted to just clean it up, and he sent me the original document, and then he's reviewed it since
Cool.
we've made these changes and said everything looks good, so it's been reviewed by the same attorney who originally wrote it, so.
All right, any other discussion? Skylar, any more questions?
Not for me.
All right. So the question is to approve the LCCA board bylaws revision, and we're going to vote.
We're gonna vote by
we're gonna write
paper
it down.
tonight.
All right.
Only Skylar's not able to.
Skylar's not here.
Can he text something? I don't know if that would
Yeah,
be.
why don't you text me? Yeah, so I have it in writing. The ballot says, Skylar, I approve the LCCA board bylaws revision, or I do not approve.
Got that, all right.
And we'll have him do this next time we see him, we'll have him sign it, just so we have his
Today's
signature in file.
16th. And Stacy, can you just have one of these next time?
The votes, I guess.
Skylar says, I approve the changes to the bylaws, and Tom's catching the font is the most important thing that was said during this discussion.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. Hey, I'm just reading what he wrote.
It's unanimously approved.
Okay.
All right, so the motion's carried, the ayes have it, and the bylaw revision is approved. And then the final, and for those of you listening and those of you parents, this is something that we've been talking about for 2 or 3 months easily, and that is executive limitation policies. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the executive limitation policies?
Move to approve executive limitation policy.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, actually. Skylar, can you hear me? Is he still there?
Skylar, can you hear us?
Did we lose him?
Skylar, are you on mute? Is he on mute?
He is.
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was not here, I figured it out. Yes, I can hear you, it's fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a quick summary here of where we're at with this. So this was something that came out of, this is actually a recommendation from Hillsdale College with governance, with board governance, that we have governance policies, which is how the board does its work. And then we also have school policies, which is how the school operates, and those are all determined by our school leader with the assistance of her team. And then as long as everything's in with mission, we approve them, but she writes them, and that's done by the school. We are in charge of writing board policy and how the board does its work. Then there's also sort of this middle area that's called executive limitation policies, and this is all from a book, John Carver, the John Carver book. So what the purpose of executive limitation policies are also policies that the board writes that provides a framework for the school leader. So whoever holds that position knows the boundary of where he or she shall not go. And then within that boundary, they have free rein to operate the school as they see fit. And as long as it's within mission, then the board does not dictate anything on how the school is run. So that's the purpose of is setting that boundary line of where thou shall not go. So the language of these policies is kind of different that way, where it sounds very
Counterintuitive.
Ten Commandments-ish. But it's important to make it very clear as to where you shall not venture. You need to stay within this area and function within that. So what we did actually at the, this is one of the items we discussed at the July work session. Brannigan talking about we need to get these going, and so there's going to be more of these, but this is sort of the first series of executive limitation policies for our school leader. So there are a series of 12 total, right?
Yep.
So you got to see, we've all seen these already and made couple. I presented these at that meeting. There a couple edits were made. Very minor, but it's, yeah, I mean, if there's any questions on any of these, it has everything to do with treatment of families, students, and prospective family students. That's number 1, 2001. So all the executive policies are in the 2000s. All the board policies will be 1000s, executives are 2, and then school policies are like 3000s. So 202, treatment of faculty and staff. Financial planning and reporting, asset protection, emergency head principal succession plan, and also compensation and benefits. And there's some others. I think I'm looking. Oh, that's right. This is the original one. So anyway, you got it all in front of you. I don't need to read it to you. But if anyone has any other questions about any of these, yeah.
Christina, on the agenda online, they're listed as a draft version and then an LCCA executive limitations policy. Are they separate documents, or is this one the earlier version and the other one's the final version?
Yeah, V2 is the one you want to be looking at. Version 2.
Okay.
That incorporates the feedback that has already been received, right? I've just got to, sorry, go.
No, I was gonna say, were the only changes made the ones that were brought up at the meeting then? That was, okay.
I just have a couple. I just want to make sure I understand. So in the very first one, number 3, fail to operate, and again, for context, the head principal shall not fail to operate facilities with appropriate accessibility. Are we talking about like ADA?
Which policy are you?
There's just a couple of lines of ambiguity that I just want to make sure I'm clear on. So the very first one,
2001, or which year when you talking about?
2001, number 2.
Oh, okay.
Fail to operate facilities with appropriate accessibility.
Yeah, I guess it's ADA. I'm not.
But that's what I said. Like, is that what it is? I just think if we're gonna create these limitations,
We should well, we can certainly, we can go back and ask.
when we vote on this, we're
Yeah.
assuming this is an ADA,
And if it's
related.
not, we'll go back and correct it.
right, we'll have to go back and correct it, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, these policies were the originated from another Hillsdale school.
It's
So,
the
yeah.
Carver policies, though, is what it really comes from. And
Yeah,
there's-
the idea of executive limitation policies is the Carver thing.
Right, and
Oh.
all of these different
Yeah.
topics were the
Right.
Carver, and then the other schools kind of adopted them, using the
Okay.
same
Okay.
outline as what Carver has.
Okay, I should let you present this.
Okay, so,
Right.
that was I just wanna make sure I just think less or no ambiguity is good.
Yeah.
So is
So-
that something we would add then, Tom, for clarification?
I think a parenthetical, I think if you can just verify that, and we
Mhm.
just do a parenthetical contextual, just to make sure that it's physical accessibility.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. that's-
Otherwise, and I just think, I mean, these are limitations of our leadership that we need to be as specific as possible. Any other discussion, Skylar? Anybody else?
And I just want to clarify, we're voting to put these in place. And are these something, Christina, that get updated? I'm just not familiar with how this policy would necessarily work. I know when I was at the board training, other school districts or other charter schools discuss this. But these get updated and revised from time to time.
They might, yeah. I mean, the boards should certainly, future boards should take a look at every policy, and rotate. There are ways to kind of keep an eye on, as we create more policies, and there's a log where they can keep an eye, when there was a policy written, was it revised? If it hasn't been, let's take a look at it. So the board should be reviewing policies on a somewhat regular basis to make sure that things are up to date.
Well, and I think with new board members that we hope to come on soon, encourage them to read them, and if something doesn't seem right, or if their
Yeah.
perspective, whether they're a business community, parent, whatever, if they have ideas.
Well, and with the policy governance idea, these are setting up the limitations for our head of school, so we would use them to monitor her and stuff like that. So each month, we should be looking at one portion of it and then getting information back from her whether or not it's being met. So it's,
Oh,
once we
interesting,
get them in
okay.
place, we don't have all the policies right yet, like the governance and stuff like that.
Right.
So this is just the beginning of it. And then we'll start to incorporate this more into our meetings and what policy we're looking at each month.
And that gives our constituents line of sight into what these
Yeah.
are and whatever.
So I know we did a calendar for administration. I'm just wondering if we should have something similar for the board.
Yes, when we move into developing the governance, that's what we'll do. We'll put in like the
Calendar.
monitoring, how often
Yeah.
is it going to be monitored? What type of monitoring are we going to be using? So that it all gets incorporated in, but this is like the start of it.
Got
So
it.
this is putting together the executive policies, and now we'll work on the governance policies, and then it will mesh together with everything.
Okay.
And then be
Okay.
used each month.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks for that
And
context.
who develops those next set of policies? That kind of ties into my question of, is this the right first step? I guess I know at our last board meeting, we talked about going through a strategic planning process as a board with an outside consultant. And I guess my question is, is that, do the strategic planning process first before adopting these policies? I know throw out a little bit of a wrench of things. But not that these would necessarily be inconsistent, maybe. I mean, I don't see it as that.
Yeah.
Look at it like,
I'm just-
I
These are
don't,
Hillsdale
these aren't, yeah, I don't see this as strategy, Skylar. These are policies that should be put in place for a school leader. So whoever is at the helm of the school needs to know what the boundary line is and what's expected. So, it's something that I think should have been in place already, but we just have been busy with other things, and, we're making it a priority now to get these in place. So, I would recommend, and I think, I'm not going to be on the board much longer, but there will be perhaps forming a board committee that can help write these policies would be helpful. It's really up to the board as a whole, how they want to go about getting more of these written, and sort of a time frame for that.
Just from looking at the John Carver books and stuff like that, his idea is he kind of lays out a framework with a lot of the policies, and then like what we did this summer, we kind of took those policies and we talked about them and edited them to some extent to make it our policies. So the framework is kind of there through the Carver governance policy, and it's taking that now and then just kind of looking at those and how do we want to tweak them and use them, and then utilize it as a governance, so our board can be a governance policy moving forward.
Okay.
I'm tracking. Randy?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, if there's no more debate, all in favor of approving and therefore adopting these initial executive limitation policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Scott, okay. Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. The executive limitation policies are adopted. And with that, we come to the end of our meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
We have closed session.
We adjourn this. We adjourn this meeting. I think we're gonna take a break.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's fine, sorry.
Oh, we adjourn, or we make a motion to move into closed session, right? Is that what we're?
Well,
And we can
I
move
wanna
into
take a
closed
break.
session and
Yeah, we
take a
can do
break.
that.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right, anybody want to make a motion to move into closed session?
And we should probably say the statute along with it.
Yes. Per Wisconsin statute 19.851E to discuss purchasing of public properties which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody
First,
opposed?
we have to
move it in
move.
second.
She's right, we
have
gotta
move it
move.
in
Well, that's what I
second.
tried to do initially.
I missed you.
Anybody want to move?
I'll move to move into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute
All right.
19.851E to discuss the purchasing of public properties in which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Anybody want a second?
I will second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right,
Okay,
we are adjourned from the,
we're in closed session.
well, we're
Yeah.
adjourned.
Okay.
All right, I have to hit the restroom.
You want this off, Christine?
Yeah. Is it stopped? That's not.